WrestleMania is the place where big things happen. Big matches, big moments, and if you're Samoa Joe in a downpour, big ponchos. If you're a wrestler who's been out of action for a while, then you want to make a grand impression when you come back, which makes WrestleMania the perfect place for a comeback. Don't believe me? Just ask any of these guys. They will tell you from first-hand experience. Or they'll block you on social media. Maybe don't ask and just watch the video instead. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 WWE stars who made big returns at WrestleMania. Join us. Number 10, Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 38. It's hard to call the American Nightmare's return at WrestleMania 38 a surprise, because just about everybody had figured out it was going to happen. Cody Rhodes and his wife Brandi had announced their departure from All Elite Wrestling in February 2022, about a month and a half ahead of WWE's biggest show of the year. Then, in the build-up to the special night, it was announced that Seth Rollins would be facing a mystery opponent at the Showcase of the Immortals. I wonder who that could be. Regardless of how obvious it was, Cody's appearance here was still monumental, not just because he had only recently left the company he had helped found, but also because this was his first WWE sighting in almost 6 years. If that wasn't mad enough, then Rhodes came out looking and sounding exactly as he had done in AEW. He even kept his old theme song, thank the Lord. In just a year's time, Rhodes went from WrestleMania surprise to WrestleMania main eventer as he battled Roman Reigns for the undisputed Universal Championship. And by this point, do we really need to tell you what happened next? Number 9, Matt Hardy at WrestleMania 24. One of the best feuds of 2007 was the constant battle of one-upsmanship between Montel Vontavious Porter and Matthew Moore Hardy. Somehow MMH doesn't have the same ring to it as MVP. The two started as rivals, competing in a variety of contests ranging from basketball to beer drinking to see who was the best. Then they formed an unlikely partnership, even winning the tag team titles, but it all went sour when MVP turned on Hardy after they dropped the belts. This was supposed to spin off into a match between the two, but after Matt's appendix decided to delete itself, plans were put on hold. Hardy returned from the surgery only to then get beaten up by Randy Orton as part of his storyline with brother Jeff. Poor guy just can't catch a break, can he? At WrestleMania 24, MVP was competing in the Money in the Bank ladder match and looked to have the briefcase within his grasp when who should run in through the crowd but his old enemy. Hardy stopped his foe from winning the match, delivering a thunderous twist of fate off the top of the ladder to announce that he was back and he meant business. Number 8, Yokozuna at WrestleMania 11. At WrestleMania 10, Yokozuna competed in 2 World Championship matches, ending the night by putting over Bret Hart as the new champ. Neither of the matches were especially great, but still, he was in 2 of them. The following 12 months would not be kind to the faux sumo, as his main event status dwindled and his personal life was dogged by his ballooning weight. After losing to The Undertaker at Survivor Series 1994, Yoko disappeared for a while, biding his time until his services were called upon by an unexpected source. In the lead-up to WrestleMania 11, Owen Hart started bragging that he had a very special partner up his sleeve to take on the Smoking Guns for the World Tag Team titles. When time came for The Rocket to reveal his new friend, out came the former world champion. Yoko and Owen beat the future Daddy Ass and Brawl for All winner to capture the belts and would become 2-time champions overall. As for the big man, he would compete at one more WrestleMania before piecing out of the company in late '96. Number 7, John Cena at WrestleMania 35. Okay, this one is a little wonky, seeing as Cena had been on WWE TV as recently as the January before WrestleMania 35, but once we explain how he came back, you will understand. Fans thought they were going to be getting an Elias concert when the former Drifter sat down to play his guitar, only to be interrupted by some strange images appearing on the big screen. After a quick recap of Babe Ruth's performance in the 1932 World Series, for some reason, a song began to play, a song that fans hadn't heard in a long time. Word life! This is basic thugonomics! Basic thug, just like that. Accompanied to the ring by this heavenly tune, out came Johnny Boy in his old Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick, the character that had first gotten him over all those years ago. Complete with backwards cap, knuckle dusters, and trademark padlock chain, this was the first time the Good Doctor had made an appearance since Cena's feud with The Rock in 2012. It was nice to see Cena return to his roots and all, but considering this WrestleMania lasted approximately 700 hours, this probably could have been cut for time. Number 6. The Undertaker at WrestleMania 34. The year before he was hipping and hopping his way all over Mania 35, John Cena was involved in another big return. With no clear path to a match at WrestleMania 34, Cena called out The Undertaker despite the fact that the dead man had seemingly retired at the previous year's event. Cena and Taker had only had one pay-per-view singles match up to this point, so fans were very curious as to what one in 2018 would look like, if it were even feasible. The show rolled around and Cena still hadn't received an answer, so he started the night in the crowd as a fan. But then he got word of something, rushed to the back, and came out later in the evening in his gear. After an initial fake-out involving Elias, what is it with this guy? The lights went down, the bell tolled, and the Phenom rose again. Undertaker was back, and he was ready for a fight, though clearly not that much of a fight as he squashed Cena in under 3 minutes. The two never had their proper blow-off match, but hey, the return was cool if nothing else. Number 5, Paul Bearer at WrestleMania 20. 14 years prior to the Cena return, Undertaker had another WrestleMania rebirth when he donned the Deadman persona for the first time in 4 years to battle Kane at Mania 20. We could have included this as its own entry, but we already pulled the whole returned but under a different gimmick trick with Cena. Also, we would be ignoring an honest-to-goodness comeback in the process. One of the coolest parts of this whole thing was that Taker's entrance included an appearance from former manager Paul Bearer. The pale-faced mortician hadn't been an on-screen character in WWE since 2000 and hadn't been signed with the promotion since 2002. He had even denied on his website that he would be involved in the Taker segment, but old Percy Pringle had pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. At the head of a contingent of druids, urn in hand, Bearer led his old charge to the ring to watch him beat the crap out of his own son, weird, I'll let it slide though, and would remain as Undertaker's manager for a few months. That was until he got buried in cement, but we don't need to dwell on that just now. Number 4, Miss Elizabeth at WrestleMania 7. Rounding off our manager portion of proceedings, we have one of the most emotional moments in wrestling, nay, sports history. After turning to the dark side prior to WrestleMania 5, Macho Man Randy Savage ditched his long-term valet/partner Miss Elizabeth, opting instead for the managerial services of the maniacal sensational Sherry. Liz made sporadic appearances throughout 1989 and 1990, often against her former squeeze before being taken off TV in August. Her big return happened at WrestleMania 7, where she was spotted in the crowd watching Savage take on the Ultimate Warrior in a retirement match. After a hard-fought battle, the Macho Man got pinned, bringing his illustrious career to an end. Then, at his lowest point, Sherry turned on Savage, literally kicking him whilst he was down in front of a disgusted WrestleMania crowd. And that is when the typically tranquil Liz got mad. In her best sparkly jumper, the First Lady of Wrestling ran down to the ring and saved her man from the beatdown. For the first time in over 2 years, Savage and Elizabeth embraced, and everything was right in the world. I can still remember being there live and watching it all unfold in person. Number 3, Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 19. If someone had pitched the idea of Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania in 1987, they would have been laughed at. However, by 2003, things were very different. The Hulkster and the genetic jackhammer went to war over who truly created WrestleMania, and thanks to a metric ton of smoke and mirrors, had an incredibly entertaining brawl. With both participants down, a man in a cap and a black coat got into the ring. Instead of a crazed fan though, it was a crazed wrestler. Rowdy Roddy Piper was back. The Hot Rod hadn't been seen in WWE since 1996 and was the last person anybody expected to get involved in this match. He initially teased hitting McMahon with a lead pipe, only to turn on his old enemy Hogan and lay him out instead. Two middle-aged men beating each other to a bloody pulp was already crazy enough, but for this match to also contain the return of one of wrestling's biggest ever stars, that tipped it over the edge. Number 2, The Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 8. According to legend, the ending to WrestleMania 8 was supposed to feature Papa Shango running in to break up a Hulk Hogan pinfall on Sid Justice, ending the main event in a DQ. Unfortunately, the Witch Doctor must have been too busy cleaning his cauldron as he missed his cue and buggered the whole thing up. Oops. Luckily, this didn't affect the true finale to the show, which saw Hogan being beaten up by Sid and Shango only to receive aid from an old familiar face. For the first time since he was suspended over the whole holding the main event of SummerSlam hostage episode, the Ultimate Warrior came charging down to the ring to help his fellow jacked up musclehead, fighting off the heels and ending the night on a high. Vince McMahon had called on Warrior after learning of Hogan's desire to leave the promotion, hoping that he would be able to fill his shoes. For various reasons, however, this Warrior comeback tour did not last long. The Ultimate One would make another Mania comeback 4 years later, when he squashed Triple H at Mania 12, but that wasn't nearly as exciting as when he saved the Hulkster. Funny though. Number 1, the Hardy Boys at WrestleMania 33. Of all the things that could have happened in 2016, nobody could have predicted Matt Hardy becoming one of the most talked about names in wrestling, having reinvented his character as a vessel for a millennia-old magical spirit. With Jeff alongside as Brother Nero, Broken Matt not only saved his own career, but also made people talk about Impact Wrestling once again. This is why, when it was announced that Matt and Jeff would be leaving Impact in February 2017, all eyes were on them. WrestleMania 33, which took place in early April, was scheduled to feature a 3-team ladder match for the Raw Tag Team Championships. With Enzo and Cass, the Good Brothers and the Bar already in the ring, out came the New Day to announce that a 4th duo would be joining them. Then, sure enough, for the first time since 2009, the Hardy Boys were back. With an absolutely electric crowd behind them, Matt and Jeff not only competed in this match, but won it, giving them their first WWE Tag Title reign since 2007. All this just one day after they competed in another ladder match for Ring of Honor. Now that is what I call wonderful!